I have had a ton of people ask me if 2026 will be Halo's comeback year. Is 2026 going to be the year of Halo? I think that's a little generous, but that doesn't mean that it can't shock us. Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name's HOLLOWTIDE, and today I want to talk about why I don't think 2026 is the quote-unquote year for Halo, but before you click away, it could still matter. A lot. Remember, if you enjoy Halo content, make sure you subscribe and leave a like on the video, as well as your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. I read every single one of them. Just keep it respectful. So what do we have to look forward to in 2026 for Halo? As of this moment, right now, we've got one release on the books, and that's Campaign Evolved. A couple of HCS sponsored events, such as DreamHack, Halo Fest, and honestly, that's not a lot. The wild card that's floating around is a standalone multiplayer that might get announced or might get shadow dropped. And quite honestly, if that happens, I think everything does actually change. But in this video, I don't want to, give any hype, no doom, just things that will actually decide whether Halo will get its moment in the sun or not this year. We're going to cover the new single player game, Campaign Evolved, and if a single campaign can carry a franchise, multiplayer, such as that mysterious standalone game Halo Infinite and MCC, and what the community is actually doing and how it's kind of the secret weapon that nobody's really giving enough credit to, and just Halo and the cultural momentum that it has in general. So first off, let's talk about Campaign Evolved, the one thing that we know that is absolutely coming this year. And while, to me, this kind of goes against the spirit of what Halo is, I think that Halo has always been campaign and multiplayer. You play the campaign and then the multiplayer carries it through its lifespan. But we've seen recently that a good single-player narrative game can do a lot of good for a franchise. But again, this is crucial. A single campaign isn't going to be a substitute for healthy multiplayer or a live service that actually lives. For Halo, if Campaign Evolved nails the pacing and the story and the combat, it has that classic Halo feel, then maybe it could be the hook that reminds everyone why they fell in love with the universe in the first place and gets PlayStation players also involved with the franchise. But there's been a lot of back and forth on if Halo Studios actually understands what Combat Evolved was. We want level design that feels, classically Halo, sandbox encounters where you can approach things 10 different ways, mission variety, and for the game to actually be polished at launch. With Unreal Engine 5, I am extremely worried about that. Because if Campaign Evolved ships with, game-breaking bugs or feels thin on that new content or just the content that they've remade, any goodwill that they've built up that window will get slammed shut so fast. And then you'll have a whole new community of PlayStation players saying, is this really what we waited for? Honestly, to me, if I was in charge of everything, if I was, the head person at Halo Studios or I guess, Microsoft Xbox, I would have just thrown MCC onto PlayStation. I would have given it a UI update, one big last little content push and stuff, and thrown it on PlayStation, say, here you go, and then Halo Infinite could have followed, a couple months later. Have one last big update, UI and all that stuff. And instead of working on a remake of a remake of a remake of a... I'm just kidding. I would have started on the new Halo game, Halo 7, whatever that is. Or maybe even a spin-off game like ODST 2. Because I really do think the risk and reward that you get out of remaking Combat Evolved and having it directly compared to Bungie and the studio that everyone compares you to already is probably not great going forward. But, I could be wrong. Because if it does arrive and it's polished, it's engaging, it feels like Halo, then that's a good starting point for 2027. It's a foundation. But here's where things get kind of interesting. To me, Halo's heartbeat has always been the multiplayer. I think the campaign, brings attention, but players stay and new players stay because of multiplayer. So with Campaign Evolve scheduled, there's been talk, and nothing confirmed obviously, but there's been talk of a standalone multiplayer that could be announced this year. If you've ever watched the channel, we've talked about certain affinities, Halo mode and stuff. There's been leaks about the next Halo multiplayer game being Fortnite-esque. Truth be told, who knows at this point? People have said that they think the multiplayer is going to launch alongside Campaign Evolved, and that's why Campaign Evolved doesn't have a remade multiplayer. But we're going to go an entire year, most likely, without a new Halo multiplayer game or massive updates to Halo Infinite or MCC. And then if it's more than a year and all the pro players have left, HCS and content creators are gone, I think that is so detrimental to the franchise as a whole. It really does feel like most of the Halo Studios multiplayer games have been locked behind endless development hell, or it launches as a microtransaction nightmare. The hype dies off, the community leaves. We've seen it happen before. Now, depending on how things go for the rest of the year and how far they are in development of whatever this new multiplayer game is, we could see something, say, at the summer showcase or one of Xbox's big events. But as of right now, I just don't know how optimistic I am about seeing anything new multiplayer-wise from the studio or one of the other studios that I guess are helping. I really don't think that they would shadow drop it as well. I think something like this, especially being on PlayStation, would need a huge amount of hype and marketing behind it. We saw Halo Infinite have, 270,000 people on PC playing. It was an untapped market. I think the same goes with PlayStation. People want to play Halo, people want a good Halo game, but, we just gotta wait and see. As with HCS and esports side of things, I do think that HCS is very important to the Halo ecosystem as a whole. I know people will argue about, the game caters to pro players and all that stuff, but I really do think that HCS, it causes consistent viewership spikes and community excitement, and we normally get new updates during these events. But with 2026, it is not, a full calendar. Yes, has effectively ended. They're going to be helping with the DreamHack event. There's talks about Shopify trying to host an invite-only type of LAN. A lot of the pro players are leaving, and obviously fewer events just means less consistent exposure. I don't blame, pro players for leaving or trying other titles or focusing on different games for content, because it's just such an unsure thing. I know a lot of teams are pulling funding and salaries and all that stuff, but I'm worried that we're going to lose a lot of the quote-unquote stars that are in Halo Esports to other games, or they're just never going to come back. I do want to touch on something that I think people, especially outside of the Halo community, don't really realize, and that's how the actual Halo community at large is unusually powerful when it comes to their games. Because of Forge and custom games, the Master Chief Collection and mods, I do think that these things have kept people engaged, even without new releases or really new big content updates. For years now, MCC constantly is getting mod updates with new campaigns and things like that. And just some of the stuff that comes out of the mods, it's incredible. But that's really not enough to keep the franchise in front of people. I know there was a Halo raid recently made in Infinite, and a bunch of Destiny content creators covered it and played it and stuff. But that's just a blip on the radar and doesn't bring new players in. And in a couple days, it'll just be, radio silence again. Another thing is that Halo isn't just a game, it's a total brand. You have the TV show, merchandise, books. I think all that stuff pushes Halo into spaces where other games don't really get to touch and has more exposure. I do think that even if you loved or hated the Halo TV series, it did get people who were non-gamers or non-Halo fans to the franchise, and it, for better or for worse, put Halo back out there in front of people. The fact that we're not getting a new season of that is another reason why I don't think that 2026 is the year of Halo, but it is what it is. So going off the things that we actually know with Campaign Evolved and the small HCS calendar and the potential for a standalone multiplayer, all that talking seriously, no. 2026 is definitely not Halo's year of a full comeback. I think that everybody needs to keep their expectations in check. A lot of the core Halo community just latches on to these leaks and rumors and ends up getting disappointed. And having one major single player release and a couple competitive events, it's meaningful, but it's not great. I do think at the end of the year with Halo Fest, that's really going to start the next year of Halo with 2027. I could see, with the development time and the resources that they've been pouring into these other games, since they've said they're working on multiple games. I could see that as like the year of really starting to release a ton of Halo content. Recently, they haven't had a lot of good press with the AI stuff and the consultant firm person who is now the chief of staff. So we'll see. My optimistic but also cautious take is that 2026 is going to be an important year for Halo, and I just hope they don't mess up. Because with the rebrand and everything, I really don't think that you're going to get another second chance at becoming another member of that cultural phenomenon in gaming. So if you're a Halo fan, you can get excited about Campaign Evolved, keep your expectations in check, but we just need to be, real about what this year is potentially going to be like with Halo. Of course, I'll be covering everything going on around the scene, so if you guys enjoy Halo, make sure you sub, and I will catch you all in the next one. Peace!